Hello there tonight. We are going to step into a day, or rather a twilight, inside the world of a Roman woman whose name won't be in your history textbook, but whose life oddly enough funded half the aqueducts you learned about in school. Imagine this. The air smells faintly of wine gone sour, damp, limestone, and disappointment. You're not waking up so much as regaining consciousness tangled in a blanket that's definitely shared with at least 2 fleas and someone else's sandal. The room is generous, is barely big enough for your elbows. The ceiling is low. The walls are sweating with the cold breath of morning, and there's no window. Of course there's no window. Windows are for senators' wives and shopkeepers with bread to display. You, my friend, live in what can only be described as a stone cupboard of sin, and you probably won't survive this century. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you, because someone somewhere is listening to this while a cat steps directly on their stomach. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise. And let's get started tonight. There's no gentle stretch into the day, no clamshell sunrise or birdsong. Instead, your first conscious thought is, what did I just roll over, and is it a live spoiler? It's a fig someone left behind last night. Half crushed. Whole story? The lamp, if it hasn't been stolen again, flickers dimly. You light it, hoping for enough warmth to chase off the damp in your bones. The flame sputters like it too is questioning your life choices. You push the blanket aside and stand. Your joints creak louder than the brothel's door hinges. The stone beneath your feet is cold enough to remind you you're still alive barely. You make a mental note to steal someone's sandals if today goes well. Welcome to daybreak in the Lupanar, the Roman brothel. Outside the city of Rome is just beginning to stir. You can hear the distant creak of carts, the shouts of vendors arranging stale olives and a dog that has been barking since Nero's second marriage. You don't get to enjoy the sunrise, of course. Your window is a hairline crack between 2 blocks of limestone. But inside, the brothel's halls murmur with life-shifting bodies, light footsteps, someone whispering a goodbye that may or may not have been paid for. You know the rhythm. You've lived it for too long. There's a bucket in the corner of your room. Yes, that kind of bucket. Don't think too hard about it. You avert your gaze and instead reach for your most prized possessions. A cheap bronze mirror more dent than reflection. A jar of face powder that smells vaguely like chalk and dead flowers. And a comb that used to have all its teeth. This is your morning routine. Welcome to Work from Home Ancient Rome edition. No bathroom, no faucet, no privacy. If you want to rinse your face, you either walk to the public fountain and hope it hasn't been used to clean poultry, or you dab wine on a rag and tell yourself you're fancy. Now the cleaning begins. Not of yourself yet, of the room. You sweep out yesterday's wine stains, pick up the odd sandal or bracelet a client left behind, and straighten the mattress, hoping to make it seem less like someone cried on it you did, and more like someone had fun they didn't. Business hours in your line of work are fluid. You're always open, knock knock, or sometimes just barge in and scream. Doors are more decoration than barrier in Roman brothels. Walls paper thin. That moaning you heard at midnight wasn't your imagination. It was Lucia 2 doors down, arguing with her latest customer about whether poets should tip more. They don't. Here's a fun fact. Historians still debate whether Roman prostitutes had formal working shifts. Some claim brothels functioned like modern-day salons. Others argue it was more first come first served in the most literal sense. Either way, rest isn't something you schedule, it's something you steal. You try to wash up using what little water you hoarded last night. You smell faintly of oil, stale perfume, and smoke. You cover it with more perfume. Someone once said you smelled exotically conscious. You took it as a compliment. There's no breakfast waiting. No hot tea or bread. If you're lucky, There's a bite of leftover lentil paste. If you're really lucky, there's no one watching you eat it. You chew quickly, knowing you'll probably forget to eat again until dusk. Time to get dressed. But we'll talk about that little toga trick in the next part. For now, your morning is still unfolding. Someone's knocking already. You force a smile, or at least something that resembles enthusiasm and doesn't reveal the chipped tooth you got from last week's brawl outside the tavern. The customer asks, "Are you open?" You want to say, "I'm never closed." Instead, you offer your best half-lidded smile and say, "2 denarii if you're quick." He chuckles. You pretend to mean it. The curtain closes behind you, and another Roman morning begins the same way it always has, in a damp stone room with fading makeup, limited hope, and a job that no statue was ever carved for. And yet there's something stubbornly enduring in your breath. Something sharp even now as you lean into survival like it's just another part of the act. The city doesn't see you, but it pays you. And for now, that will have to be enough. You smooth the folds of the thin, slightly sticky fabric, breathe in the scent of old oil and overused perfume, and try to become someone else. Not a girl who sleeps in a windowless room next to a mop bucket. Not a person who wakes up to the sound of someone else throwing up wine in the hallway. Someone else, someone more sellable. Because getting ready isn't about beauty. It's about transformation. You don't have time to be delicate. You dab chalky white face powder over your cheeks, powder that used to be used on the dead to make them look more peaceful. You use it to make yourself look more awake. Then comes the red rouge for the cheeks, for the lips. It smells faintly of beeswax and desperation. You smear kohl around your eyes not for glamour, but to make them look mysterious. Tired eyes mean tired service. No one wants that. You stare into the bronze mirror. It's more dented than reflective, like it's already tired of showing you your face. You tilt your head. Smile. You look like you're about to cry, but in a flirtatious way. That'll do. Let's talk about the toga. Now, if you're picturing some elegant white drapery like the kind Julius Caesar might have dramatically thrown over one shoulder, forget it. Your toga is short, brightly colored, sometimes dyed with cheap saffron or crushed berries that stain everything, including you. It's loud, not elegant, not soft. This is your uniform, and it screams, not a matron. In ancient Rome, women were legally prohibited from wearing the stola, the long layered modest gown that whispered respectability from across the forum. That gown said, "I have a husband, a dowry, and absolutely no fun." You, however, aren't allowed to wear that. Your job title comes with a dress code. So you wear a toga, the female toga, which, yes, is basically like putting up a flashing neon sign that reads "available for negotiation." The law required it. Imagine being legally obligated to advertise your profession on your body. Your clothes had to make it obvious. Not sexy, not glamorous, just clear. And if you dared to dress like a respectable woman, you could be fined or worse dragged before an aedile, one of Rome's public decency officials, whose job was apparently to squint at your hemline and say, "This red's too elegant." Arrest her. You add jewelry next. Not because it's beautiful, because it's shiny. Visibility is the goal. A few bronze bangles, maybe a glass bead necklace if you haven't sold it yet. The earrings don't match ones from a senator's pocket, the other from a legionary who said he loved you and forgot your name. The sandals go on last, sometimes, if you can find them. Walking barefoot is a thing, not a vibe, just reality. In a city of cracked stone streets and questionable puddles, it's a risk. But what about your job isn't? Hair. Let's not forget that ordeal. You curl it if you have time with heated bronze rods that sizzle like bacon and smell about the same. If you're lucky, you have a blonde wig. Imported from Gaul. It makes you look foreign, exotic. And by exotic, we mean charge an extra coin for no reason. Romans were weird about blondes. No one quite knows why, but the fashion caught on, and so did the wigs. Historians still debate whether these wigs were status symbols, fetish objects, or just creative solutions for Roman head lice. Probably all three. You're nearly done. You give yourself one last look. You don't look rested, you don't look happy, but you look interesting, and that's what counts. Now comes the walk. Down the hallway past the other girls. They're getting ready too. Lucia has a smear of red across one cheek. Her sandal strap is broken. She doesn't fix it. Julia's wig is on crooked again. You say nothing. No one speaks in the mornings. There's a quiet code. Until you've had your face on and your fake smile warmed up, you're just recovering. The Madame Yerlina clicks past in her leather sandals. She barks out something about yesterday's sheets. Who left a fig under the mattress? No one answers. She's not really asking. In the brothel courtyard, you stretch your legs and check the mirror one last time. You breathe in, and just for a second, you feel like maybe, just maybe, you don't hate this moment. The city is waking up. Rome is humming. The sun is slanting low and golden over tiled roofs and clotheslines and alley cats. You smell fresh bread, wine sweat, and the faint perfume of last night's mistakes. And somewhere in the distance, a senator is scolding his servant for bringing the wrong sandals. Again, there's a strange calm in this moment, because you've done it all before. You know the routine. You know the men, the way they walk, the way they look at you and pretend they don't know what you are. The way they return and return again with excuses like, I just came for the poetry. You lean against the doorway and wait. A shadow moves across the alley. A man in a clean tunic, a little too clean for someone not rich, approaches. You tilt your head. Give him a look like I might pretend to care if you tip first. He smiles. You're new, he says. You nod. Even though you're not. That's the trick. You're always someone's first time, someone's fantasy, someone's new beginning, even if you're already counting the hours until your feet give out again. The customer's voice fades behind you. You draw the curtain. The room goes dim. The lamp flickers. And the performance begins again, because this is Rome. And whether you're a senator or a girl in a toga that doesn't quite fit everyone's pretending something, there's no business card, no profile photo, no carefully curated branding strategy or seductive bio filled with red heart emojis. You are the branding. You are the strategy. And your storefront is your face, your voice, and the way your hips move when you lean in the doorway just enough to say, 2 denarii if you're quick. Selling yourself in ancient Rome isn't subtle. It's performance art with no applause. The streets are alive now, dust in the air, donkeys, bleeding bread sellers yelling about their crusts. Somewhere someone's being robbed. Somewhere else someone's being crowned. You wouldn't know. You're too busy checking the angle of sunlight on your doorway because timing matters. Foot traffic is your lifeline. If you're lucky, you're stationed in a lupanar, a brothel with a fixed location and some semblance of predictability. Not safety, don't get confused. Just routine. Your office is conveniently placed near a bathhouse, a tavern, or the marketplace, because Rome, in its ancient efficiency, understood one eternal truth. People with wet hair, wine breath, or empty baskets are more likely to make questionable decisions. The corner of the forum near the bathhouse is prime real estate. You've seen the same guards stumble past after their shift eyes darting but not too long. There's a senator's son who always claims he's doing research. You stopped asking what kind. Your job is to be seen. Be loud. Be memorable. There are no printed menus, no chalkboard specials. Your voice is the pitch. Your expression is the deal closer. Some girls sing, others flirt. You once tried a joke. It went badly. Now you smile softly and say, your wife doesn't have to know. That one usually lands. The competition brutal. And 2 doors down, Lucia just dropped her rate to 1 denarius. Again. You roll your eyes. She always plays this game and it always works. The last time she tried it, she got 3 clients and 1 marriage proposal from a man who turned out to already have 2 wives and a goat. So you adapt. Visibility is the name of the game. You adjust your toga, toss your hair stand just a little too far out in the alley. Enough for the Aedil to frown, not enough to fine you. It's a balancing act between suggestion and legality. And suggestion always pays better. You know what else works, graffiti? Yes, ancient Yelp. Walls covered with scratched-in testimonials like, Felicia, very fast service. Maritima gave me the best time of my life. 2 coins well spent. Will return with friends. They're everywhere. Carved into brick, scratched into plaster, left on door frames like dirty love letters. You've even paid someone to write one for you once Livia knows things. You didn't specify what things. The mystery was the point. Sometimes clients leave reviews. Sometimes rivals do too. You once read one that said, Julia steals jewelry. She does. It didn't hurt her business. In Pompeii, they've found these scribbles perfectly preserved. That city, frozen in time by volcanic ash, still holds the carved names of working girls, their rates, and the occasional drawing of a particularly inaccurate body part. Let's just say confidence was never in short supply. Historians still debate whether these reviews were genuine endorsements or just marketing stunts. Personally, you know the answer. If men have one talent, it's exaggerating what didn't happen and leaving reviews like they're conquering generals. The most enterprising among you go mobile. Freelancers. You hover near temples, nothing says divine intervention like temptation right on the marble steps of Venus's shrine. Or you drift toward taverns, scanning for a legionary with too much wine and not enough shame. You've got your spots. The alley with good sunlight in the afternoon. The forum corner near the bakery, hungry men make fast decisions. Outside the baths where the steam has barely left their skin and they're still feeling rich with soap and optimism. One time you met a client at the base of a statue of Jupiter. He called it fate. You called it geometry. You were standing in the only shadow. Now let's talk about rates, but not yet in coin. First in charm. You have to know how to read people. Who's nervous, who's bluffing, who's rich but stingy, who's poor but generous, who's pretending to be noble while wearing a tunic that smells like cabbage. You make decisions in seconds. Offer a discount upcharge because he's being weird. Call out something cheeky like, I like your sandals, or you look like someone who doesn't want to talk to his wife right now. Sometimes it's not about looks. It's about being seen at the right moment, saying the right line and closing before they remember their morals. One woman you know carved her name into a column. Just one name, Tatya. No price, no detail. Just the word. She got more clients that week than anyone else. Mystery works. But so does the opposite. You've seen girls write tertia, 2 coins, fast, friendly, clean. It's not romantic, but it works. The point is, you advertise. Because no matter how beautiful, clever, or skilled you are, if no one knows your name, you don't eat. Some girls go theatrical. Costumes, stories. You once knew a woman who pretended to be a princess from Parthia. She had an accent, a backstory, and a fake birthmark. She made enough to retire, or vanish. Same thing. Sometimes during downtime you practice your expressions in your bronze mirror. The inviting smile, the flirty eye roll, the pretend laughter that makes them feel clever. It's like theater if the stage were crumbling and smelled like fish sauce. And when someone bites, when a man lingers, hesitates, steps closer, you know how to seal it. A soft voice, a glance down, a shrug like you're already bored. You say, I'm not cheap, but I'm worth it. He smiles. You don't. The curtain pulls closed. The alley forgets you for a moment, but you'll be back. You always are. Because in this city, the best business isn't the marble. It's the mouths behind it. You never really know what your body's worth until someone tries to pay for it in bread. Not fresh bread either. Stale, cracked with a hint of mold. He holds it out like it's a precious gift and says, "It's all I have." You blink, you sigh, you close the curtain anyway. Because sometimes the bread is less disappointing than the man. Let's talk pricing. There's no standard rate, no union to call, no list of benefits taped to the wall. What you make depends on where you work, how you look, who you know, and let's be honest, how desperate you are that day. Prices vary more than Roman poetry quality, and that's saying something. If you work in a low-end lupanar, your rates are usually as low as the room is dark. 1 or 2 asses, a small bronze coin that could barely buy a cup of wine. It's insulting, but it's common. Some men pay with food, cheap jewelry, or promises they won't keep. One guy once tried to barter you a live chicken. You said yes. The chicken laid no eggs and died 2 days later. That felt about right. If you're lucky enough to be a meretrix, a higher-end, semi-independent courtesan, you deal in denarii. Silver coins. Not always clean, not always honest, but silver at least feels like dignity. Your clients are richer, usually quieter, and occasionally smell like they've bathed this month. Sometimes they even ask your name. Sometimes they remember it. But even at the top, there's always a ceiling. And it's leaking. You see, the Roman system wasn't designed for you to rise. The ceiling isn't glass. It's stone. Thick, unmoving, and always pressing down. You could be beautiful, witty, clean, talented at flute playing or poetry reciting, and still be offered less than a guy's daily wine budget. Historians still debate whether the average prostitute made enough to live comfortably. And the answer is well-defined comfortably. If your definition includes privacy, stability, or owning a blanket that hasn't been sneezed on by 3 different clients, then no. Not really. But pricing isn't just coin, it's performance. Your value goes up if you can sing, or tell jokes, or dance in ways that make senators blush. You know a girl who can recite Virgil while doing things that would make even Jupiter look away. She charges triple. You develop a niche, a specialization. Some girls work only with sailors, they like them drunk and generous. Others target philosophers, they tip poorly, but talk themselves into paying more out of guilt. You personally go for poets. Not because they're generous, but because they're predictable. And occasionally, one writes a sonnet about your knees. That's something. Sometimes you give discounts to regulars. Sometimes you raise your prices out of spite. Once you charged a man extra because he asked if your toga was on backward. It wasn't. He paid anyway. And then there's the middlemen. If you work under a Leno, or Lena a pimp, or Madam, you don't keep all your coin. You keep a fraction. They say it's for protection, or rent, or marketing. But let's be honest, it's for them to buy nicer sandals. Some of them take half. Some take more. And if you complain, they'll remind you whose name is on the lease and maybe on your branding too. Yes, branding. Literal branding. In some cases, especially for enslaved women, you're marked. Tattooed. Burned. A stamp of ownership right on the skin. Maybe on the arm. Maybe the forehead. Maybe where only the clients can see. Just a little reminder, you are property, not person. The mark might say lupa she-wolf. That's Roman slang for prostitute. It's not flattering, but at least it's consistent. One girl you knew had her owner's name inked along her collarbone. When he died, she tried to burn it off. All she got was a scar. The name stayed. Like a cruel signature on a page she never agreed to. If you're enslaved, you don't get paid at all. Not in coin. Not really. You get food. Sometimes. Shelter. Technically. And the vague promise that if you save enough, behave enough, maybe you can buy your freedom one day. You save every coin you can. You hide it under loose stones, behind cracked tiles and old sandals. You count them every week. They never add up. Let's not pretend this is just about money. It's also about dignity. You remember every man who paid less than agreed. You remember every man who threw the coin at you, not to you. You remember every man who looked at you like furniture. You also remember the one who paid extra just because you were kind. He smelled like roses and fear. You think he was running from something, maybe a life he didn't want. He cried after. You didn't ask why. Sometimes when it's late and the hall is quiet, you add up the day's take. You sit on your straw mattress and count. 3 denarii from the merchant who talked about his boat. 1 coin and half a fig from the soldier who didn't take off his sandals. A poem scrawled on papyrus from a client who said he couldn't pay, but hoped you'd see the value in art. You burned that one. You count and calculate not just the coins, but what they mean. How much food? How many bath visits? How many days of not having to say yes to someone who smells like goat cheese and ambition? You wonder sometimes, is there a price you could charge that would change everything, a price high enough to walk away? To buy a little perfumery near the Tiber? To never wear rouge again? To forget? But that's not how it works. Because even when you raise your rate, there's always someone newer, younger, cheaper, waiting just down the hall. So you don't dream of fortune. You dream of control, of choosing, of saying no, of one day closing the curtain and not opening it again. But not tonight. Tonight the curtain flutters open. A client stands in the doorway. He's already talking. You hold out your hand. He drops 2 coins. You nod. He doesn't ask your name, and neither do you. Welcome back to the Lupanar. It sounds almost poetic, doesn't it? Like a constellation, like something a philosopher would name his daughter. But no Lupanar comes from Lupa she-wolf, Rome's polite way of saying sex worker, and the R just makes it a place. So really you work in the she-wolf house, which somehow manages to be both threatening and adorable. It's not luxurious. It's not even clean, but it has walls, a roof, and if you squint hard enough, something resembling a pillow. That counts as high-end here. The Lupanar is nestled somewhere between a tavern and a bathhouse, which makes perfect sense. You get the customers who are either halfway to tipsy or halfway to clean. Sometimes both, sometimes neither. You've learned not to be picky. Inside the air is thick, not warm, not cold. Just heavy, like the building itself is tired. The walls are stone, the floors are stone, and the beds also stone. Each room is more like an alcove carved just deep enough to fit a mattress stuffed with straw hay or whatever was available the day they built the place. There's no door, just a curtain. Thin linen if you're lucky. Threadbare wool if you're not. Some girls try to personalize it with beads or perfume sachets. Others don't bother. Privacy. That's for senators. Here you can hear your neighbor working. You can hear her client snoring. You can hear the madam yelling at someone in the hallway for spilling wine on the mosaic. Again, you share the space with other girls. Some you like, some you avoid. One of them, Callista, sings during appointments. Loudly. The men love it. You don't. Your Lena the madam walks the halls like a general surveying her troops. Her sandals slap the stone floor in time with your heartbeat. She doesn't smile. She doesn't need to. She collects the coins, smooths the curtains, adjusts a hemline here or a headscarf there. Occasionally she shouts something like, "Hurry up, he's important," as if that makes anything more appealing. You once asked her what made a client important. She said his wife is rich. You stopped asking questions after that. The Lena takes her cut. Always. Before you see a single coin. She claims it's for cleaning upkeep safety. You know better. You've seen the rats. You've felt the cold. But what are your options? Go freelance and sleep under a bridge. At least here the walls don't bite. The clientele A mix. That's the generous word. You get everything from nervous teenagers who fumble with their coin purses to seasoned senators who smell like incense and power. Some are in and out faster than a sneeze. Others want to talk, want to confess, want to tell you about their mother. You nod. You listen. You say, "Oh no," at the right times. You do not care. One client read you a poem once. It was about olives. You still don't know why. You become good at quick reads. The ones who tip, the ones who lie, the ones who want something weird, and the ones who say, "This is my first time," even though it's clearly not. You keep tally in your head, not of money, of danger. You can tell when a man's hands are going to be rough, when his voice will go sharp, when his eyes won't look at you. That's when you ask for your Lena to wait outside the curtain, just in case. Because in this world, the worst thing isn't poverty. It's unpredictability. The walls of the lupanar are covered in graffiti, scribbles, reviews, little drawings, most of them not accurate. You see, Felix was here twice. Ties gives a good time. Beware of one-eyed gladiator. He never pays. Sometimes you add your own, not your name, but maybe a flower or a heart with a line through it. Your own tiny rebellion. During slow hours, you sit at the front of the building near the entrance, offering your best dead-inside flirtatious expression. You try to look mysterious, alluring, but also bored. The trick is to seem like you might be worth the risk of being seen. Marketing is volume-based. You call out 2 coins today. I'll pretend to listen. Lucia next to you raises an eyebrow. Special on flattery, she says. Buy 1 compliment, get a second lie free. You smirk. The day is long. Let's talk about the rooms. Each one is labeled with a little number or sometimes a name. Yours is room V, because apparently even Roman brothels like a touch of drama. Inside, there's barely space to stand, turn, or think. You've learned how to move like smoke, soft, efficient, invisible when necessary. The mattress sags. The curtain rustles with every breeze or breath. You've patched the fabric 3 times with threads stolen from a tavern. It doesn't help much. At night, when the hallway goes quiet, you hear the stone walls sigh. Or maybe that's just you. The lupanar is your workplace, your shelter, your prison, your theater. Sometimes when a client leaves and you're alone again, you lie back on the mattress and stare at the ceiling. There's a crack that looks like a fish. You named it Octavia. She's been there longer than you have. You think about leaving, about saving up, about buying your way out. But then you hear footsteps. The curtain stirs. A voice says, "Are you free?" You smile. The performance resets. Because here in the lupanar, you don't get to retire. You just get better at pretending. Let's say the lupanar is full. The rooms are taken. The Lena is fuming, tapping her sandal like a war drum. Clients are getting impatient. There's a senator in the hallway muttering about his loyalty, and a sailor trying to convince the curtain in room 3 to open for half price. What do? You grab your shawl, reapply your rouge with your finger, and head to your second job, the tavern. Now let's be clear. Working a tavern isn't the fallback gig of dreams. It's not even the fallback gig of options. It's chaotic, sticky, loud, and smells like despair left out overnight. But it's a roof, a crowd, and coin. So you adjust your neckline smile at the bouncer with the bad tooth and step through the swinging curtain into another kind of battlefield. Taverns known as Capone or Popine were where the working class of Rome came to yell at dice-spill wine and pretend their lives didn't smell like fish sauce and broken dreams. You serve wine flirt shamelessly and dodge wandering hands, sometimes all at once, sometimes in that order. It's a dance, really. You're the waitress, the entertainment, and the potential purchase. No one tips for emotional labor, but everyone demands it. You pour wine that's already been watered down twice, hand it to a merchant with a stain on his tunic, and say, "On the house, if you can tell me your wife's name." He can't. You charge double. Behind you, the tavern owner yells about someone breaking a bench. Again. A lyre player is strumming something mournful in the corner off-key, but loud enough to feel permanent. A soldier is trying to impress a girl with stories about Gaul that you're pretty sure were lifted from a play. No one's listening. And you're watching it all while balancing a tray, a smile, and your patience. You offer smiles like currency, touches like suggestions. Everything is a negotiation. Do they want company or just conversation? A hand on the shoulder or the promise of more behind the curtain upstairs. Some nights you're just the charm. A laugh, a shoulder, a distraction. Other nights you guide a client upstairs to one of the back rooms, nod to the tavern's bouncer, retired gladiator, one eye always hungry, and get to work. Those rooms are no better than the lupanar, narrow, smoky, often reeking of old broth and shame, but at least they're temporary. In the tavern, your job is to be unforgettable, but not too memorable. If you're too sweet, they want more. If you're too cold, they leave. You stay right in the middle, approachable, untouchable, and just flirty enough to keep the denarii flowing. You learn tricks. Flatter the guy with the limp. Tell the older ones they look powerful. Tell the younger ones they look rich. If they ask for your real name, laugh. If they ask what you're doing later, say, "Counting my coins." One night a man offers you a ring instead of payment. It's copper with a green stone. "It belonged to my mother," he says. You take it. You wear it for a week. Then you trade it for 3 loaves of bread and a pair of sandals that almost fit. Some taverns keep girls like you in-house. Technically, you're part of the staff. You get a cut of the drinks you serve and an even smaller cut of whatever happens in the upstairs room. Other taverns, you freelance float from spot to spot charm. A few drinkers make a few arrangements disappear before dawn. Either way, you have to move fast, think faster, and never let your guard down. A drunken client is a gamble. He might be generous. He might be angry. He might fall asleep on your lap and cry about his brother. That happened once. You patted his head, took the coin, and left him snoring in his own wine puddle. The smell is the worst part. Not just the wine or the sweat or the garum that fish sauce Rome can't stop using. It's the mixture, the layers of exhaustion, sour breath, and spilled broth, like someone tried to bottle shame and sell it as a room fragrance. Sometimes the Lena from the lupanar shows up to check on you. She eyes the crowd. She eyes you. She says, "Don't forget who owns your time." You smile and say, "I never forget." You do. Often. Especially when the tavern pays a little better and the curtain upstairs actually closes. Historians still debate whether taverns functioned as covert brothels or simply as places of social companionship. You could answer that, but no one's asked you. The truth, it's both. Sometimes a man wants company. Sometimes a man wants comfort. Sometimes he just wants to pretend that someone sees him. You've seen it all. You've smiled through it. You've charged extra for it. You've comforted a dying man who gave you all his coin and said, "Tell my daughter I wasn't always like this." You didn't know his daughter. You bought new sandals. The bouncer winks at you. The poet in the corner raises his cup. You ignore them both. At the end of your shift, your hair smells like wine. Your dress is damp from who knows what. Your sandals stick to the floor. You count your earnings in the alley under the flicker of a stolen oil lamp. 6 denarii, 1 garnet earring, half a meat pie, and a poem on a napkin that says, "To the girl who saw me." You tear the poem in half and throw it in the gutter. And still, as you walk back toward the lupanar, you feel it again, that slow-burning thought in your chest. The whisper that maybe, just maybe, you're getting better at this. That one day you'll leave. That one day you'll say no and mean it. That one day you'll have a room with a door. But not tonight. Tonight you slip back into the hallway. The lamp flickers. Your curtain waits. You smile and start again. Some nights you don't get a room. Not in the lupanar, not in the tavern, not even in someone else's borrowed corner of space. You're out of favor, out of slots, or out of patience. So you do what hundreds of others do, you hit the street. Street work in Rome isn't romantic. It's not even gritty in a noble way. It's just open. Too open. The sky is big, the people are bigger, and the judgment is everywhere. You wrap your shawl tighter, adjust the fall of your toga not too low, not too neat, and step into the cold Roman air with your head high and your expectations low. The streets are alive even at dusk. Vendors packing up figs and lentils, donkeys grunting. A flute playing somewhere nearby a mournful tune that might be about love or might be about indigestion. You pass a temple with flickering torches where a priestess mutters prayers, while someone else, very much not a priest, empties a wineskin behind a column. You pause near the baths. Always a good location. Men leave feeling clean, reborn, smug. Their skin still damp, their egos freshly lathered. You lean against a warm stone pillar, eyes scanning for potential. A man walks by. He looks, keeps walking. Another one stops, asks how much. You answer. He frowns, keeps walking. You exhale. Try again. Freelance work like this is a calculated risk. There's no overhead, no cut taken by Alina, no rat-infested mattress to clean. Every coin you earn is yours to keep. But there's no protection either. You stand in the open, exposed to every drunk, every angry matron, every bored guard who wants to feel powerful. And sometimes, worst of all, you stand in front of someone who recognizes you. A man you served once back when you still worked in a brothel with a roof. Now he sees you here and smirks like you've fallen. He asks if you'll go cheaper now. You don't answer. You look past him toward the alley where a fire flickers in a brazier and a woman not much older than you is roasting a stolen apple. You walk away. You make your way to the forum, still lit by torches, crowded with philosophers pretending not to notice you, and young men pretending they're not looking. Some girls wear blonde wigs made of imported hair from Gaul. You've got one too. It's itchy and smells like vinegar, but it makes you stand out. Romans love a blonde. Exotic, they say. Sophisticated. Expensive. It's all about presentation. You've learned the choreography of the street. You don't approach too quickly, that spooks them. You don't wait too long, that makes you forgettable. You time your glance, your step, your words. Nice tunic, you murmur. That belt looks expensive. You look like someone who could use a distraction. If you're lucky, they laugh. If you're really lucky, they reach into their purse. But some days it's not about luck. It's about competition. You're not the only one out here. The street is thick with girls and women, and not all of them are working in the formal sense. Some are just flirts. Some are free lovers, girls who drift from man to man because it's safer than being alone. Some are ex-gladiators with curves and confidence hustling for dinner and the right to be left alone. The crowd is diverse. The air is heavy with perfume possibility and rot. And always there's the threat of the vigils Rome's night patrols. They don't always arrest you, but sometimes they want a discount. Sometimes they want you to move. Sometimes they say you're disturbing the peace. You want to laugh. You are the peace compared to what's going on 3 alleys over. But you comply. Because the last thing you need is a night in the holding pen where the straw is damp and the rats are ambitious. You relocate, near the steps of a temple this time. Venus, ironically. You whisper a prayer, half mocking, half sincere. Just one nice client, you say. One with all his teeth, or at least a coin purse. A man approaches. He asks for directions to the bathhouse. You give them. He thanks you, leaves. No coin, no offer. You shrug. That's Rome. Everyone's got somewhere to be, and none of them plan to bring you along. Then finally a hit. A client who's tipsy but polite, who smiles without leering, who asks your name even though you both know it's not real. You name your price. He doesn't argue. You lead him behind a curtain of ivy near a merchant's stall that closed an hour ago. It's not ideal. It's barely private. But it's something. When it's over, he hands you 3 denarii. You blink. That's one more than you asked for. He shrugs. You seem tired, he says. You smile. You lie. I'm not. After he leaves you, pocket the coin, smooth your hair, and check your dress. You walk to the fountain and rinse your hands. A bird is bathing in the next basin. You envy its freedom for a moment. Then you remember birds can't afford sandals. You move again, because out here you don't stop. You don't rest. You circle the same streets, show the same smile, repeat the same lines. You become a ghost with rouge on her cheeks and a memory behind her eyes. Some nights the street is kind. Some nights you go home with coin, with bread, with dignity intact. Other nights the streets whisper cruel things. You return to your alley empty-handed, clutching your cloak tighter, whispering promises to yourself in the dark. That tomorrow will be better. That this isn't forever. That one day someone will offer you more than a few coins and an alleyway. That one day you'll walk these streets without selling anything at all. But not tonight. Tonight you stand beneath a torch wig, slightly crooked eyes scanning. You catch someone's glance. You smile. And start again. Just when you think your life couldn't get more ironic, Rome sends in the tax collector. Yes, really. You'd think the empire that gave the world concrete aqueducts and Julius Caesar's haircut would at least leave you alone in the alley behind the bathhouse. But no. Even your line of work, full of sweat perfume and bad poetry, is subject to the vectigal ex captivis Rome's official tax on prostitution. Because nothing says civilized society like charging interest on survival. Let's break it down. Every time you lift your curtain, drop your shawl, or lean too long in the wrong alley, Rome wants a cut. Not for protection, not for dignity, just because they can. You are part of the economy after all, and emperors love reminding you that even shame has monetary value. The tax isn't symbolic either. It's real. It's managed by the publicani, Rome's appointed tax collectors, a breed of bureaucrats somehow both humorless and greasy. They carry wax tablets, wear smug expressions, and have the social charm of a turned cabbage. You don't want to catch their eye, but you have to, because hiding means fines, and fines mean prison. Or worse, exile from the only walls that almost count as home. You register with the Aedile's public officials tasked with overseeing sanitation markets' moral behavior, and apparently you. Their offices smell like ink and judgment. The forms are etched into wax or parchment. You tell them your name or a name your place of work, pick one, and your rates always lie. Then they add you to the list. And just like that, you are officially a prostitute, recognized by law, ignored by society, and billed by the month. Some girls are even branded or tattooed to prove it. A little inscription, lupa, or the name of their owner if they're enslaved. A mark that says, I am not respectable, I am a transaction. It's not for clients, oddly enough. It's for the state, so that if one day you try to walk through the streets in a modest stola and say, I'm a matron now, the ink on your skin will say otherwise. Historians still debate how widespread branding really was. Some say it was common. Others think it was reserved for those owned by the state or repeat offenders. You've seen the tattoos, faded, ugly, permanent. You cover your own wrist at night even when no one's watching. The rate of taxation varies. Some regions charge you per act. Yes. As in, how many times did you? This week others tax you per week as a flat fee. Neither option feels dignified, but at least the weekly tax doesn't require you to keep receipts. Although, fun fact, some girls do keep receipts. Little scribbles, notes from clients, even carved tokens. You once saw a girl pull out a wax tablet with a list of names and numbers so organized you'd think she was running a law firm, not a back room behind a sausage stall. There's no deduction for emotional labor, no heartbreak clause, no awkward conversation rebate. The tax is the tax, and if you don't pay, they fine you, they arrest you, they revoke your license to exist. Some girls pay under the table, some flirt with the edalus, some cry, most just pay. Because Rome will let you sin, but it will never let you do it for free. You don't get anything in return for these payments. No safety, no health services, no roof guaranteed. The city doesn't promise you a better life, just more paperwork. Still, you do it. Because Rome's message is clear. We disapprove of what you do, but will happily profit from it. You've seen priests scowl at you in the forum, and then smile when they pass the temple coffers filled with coins you helped put there. You've seen senators vote on laws about virtue, and then sneak into brothels wearing travel cloaks and false names. You've served men who wrote speeches about morality, and then asked if you'd pretend to be their wife for an hour. The hypocrisy isn't subtle. But then again, nothing in your life is. Even the graffiti on your wall has to be self-funded. You once paid a drunk scribe to etch your name on a column outside a tavern, Livia 2 denarii, honest and warm. The next day, someone scratched out warm and wrote fast. The tax collectors saw it, said nothing, took your coin anyway. At times, you imagine what Rome would be like if the tax revenue from prostitutes vanished. No more street repairs. No more bathhouse expansions. No more statues of men with curly beards and tiny togas. Maybe, just maybe, the city would crumble without you. It's a comforting thought, even if it's probably not true. You remember once asking the Lena, "Do we really fund the aqueducts?" She laughed, took a drag from her pipe, and said, "No, darling, but we fund the people who say they build them." You nodded. That made sense. So now each time you hand over that week's earnings to the publicani, you whisper a little prayer. Not to Venus, not to Fortuna, but to whoever invented receipts. You hope they burn slowly. You walk away from the tax office pouch, lighter heart, tighter feet, sore. The streets are alive again. Someone's selling dates. Someone's singing badly. You spot a group of young men laughing in togas too clean to be trustworthy. One of them sees you, smirks. He says, "Aren't you that girl from the corner near the butcher? You say only on Wednesdays." He laughs. His friends don't. You keep walking, because no matter how many names they call you, how many coins they toss, how many taxes they take, you're still here, still working, still surviving. And Rome still runs on your labor. It just doesn't want to admit it. You might think the law was your biggest enemy, or the pimps, or the clients who mistook you for furniture. But no. Your fiercest, most persistent adversary is far less official and far more annoying. It's the Roman moralist. They're everywhere, dressed in fine linen, sitting in marble villas, speaking in dramatic Latin, writing poetry, delivering sermons, and pretending that their disapproval of you is rooted in ethics rather than guilt. They tut and sigh. They whisper decay of society. They point at you like you're the reason Rome is crumbling, not the corrupt senators or the endless wars or the lead in the drinking water. Moral decay, they say, always begins with women like you. Never mind that those same men show up at your curtain 3 nights a week. You know them well. They write the books. They pass the laws. They quote Cicero while untying their sandals, and they do it all with the confidence of men who think their hypocrisy is a virtue. The Senate in particular loves to posture. There's always a new decree being drafted about modesty, family values, and protecting the purity of Roman matrons. It's theater. They want the crowd to cheer while they burn the evidence. You are the evidence. One senator you served last year gave a speech the next morning about how Rome must return to virtue. You remember this because he left behind his bracelet, ivory expensive and engraved. You pawned it, bought a new cloak. He never came back. Then there are the aediles, Rome's public officials responsible for maintaining decency. Their job description is broad. Technically, they oversee marketplaces, street cleanliness, building codes, and food inspections. But somehow, they always have time to harass girls like you. Your dress is too short. Your perfume is too aggressive. Your presence outside the temple is disturbing the sanctity of the space. You smile sweetly and say, "Oh, I thought the sanctity ended at the tavern door." They don't like that. They like silence. Sometimes they fine you. Sometimes they threaten you. Sometimes, if they're feeling generous or lonely, they'll waive the fine in exchange for a little chat behind the grain store. You've learned to nod to wait to say, "How generous of you, magistrate," and to wash your hands thoroughly afterward. Writers love to talk about you too. Juvenal the satirist once wrote that you were greedy, vile, and the ruin of good Roman men. This from a man who reportedly had 3 lovers and a deep dislike of bathing. You suspect he wrote his verses drunk, or heartbroken, or both. Seneca the philosopher once compared you to spoiled fruit, attractive on the outside, rotting at the core. You laughed when you heard that, mostly because you once met a woman who'd actually served him and said he cried afterward. These men write pages about you, not to understand you, not to help you, but to pretend that their own darkness is external. If you are the sin, then they are the martyr. It's neat. It's easy. It's nonsense. Even matrons, the noble wives of Rome, get in on the judgment. They pass you in the streets with faces carved from stone. Their eyes glide over you like you're a stain they're trying not to see. They clutch their cloaks tighter. They whisper to each other. Sometimes one will mutter, "Disgraceful," just loud enough for you to hear. You don't respond. You don't need to. You've seen their husbands after dark. You've heard their secrets whispered between wine cups. You've had one of them weep in your arms, calling you by his wife's name. And yet it's you who's dirty. It's you who's unfit for baths and temples and jewelry. One matron even lobbied for a law banning prostitutes from wearing gold earrings. She claimed it was confusing, as if her husband might not know which woman he'd taken to dinner. Historians still debate whether these restrictions were about moral order or class preservation. You know the answer. It's always both. Keep the poor marked. Keep the unclean separated. Keep the wives comfortable and the mistresses quiet. But the truth is, you were never truly hidden. You're everywhere. In the bathhouses, the temples, the back alleys, the graffiti, the markets, in love letters and court records, in the margins of poems and the hearts of generals. You are Rome's favorite secret, whispered and cursed, and never truly forgotten. And deep down they know it. That's why the judgment stings. Not because it's righteous, but because it's fragile. If they stop condemning you, they might have to see you as human, as necessary, as a reflection of the very world they built. So you endure their scowls and scribbles. You keep walking, keep working, keep whispering back to their sermons with your survival. You once saw a priest pause mid-prayer to watch you walk by. He resumed his sermon with more fire than before. You once sold a night to a magistrate who insisted afterward this was a moral failing, yours, not mine. You charged him double. You once danced for a crowd that shouted insults between claps. You kept dancing. They kept watching. Because for all their disdain, they don't look away. And you don't disappear. You wear their judgment like armor, thin, tattered, but familiar. You smile when they pass, not kindly, not cruelly, just knowingly, because you know how this city works, and it works because you do. Some dangers you see coming: a drunken client, a jealous madam, a senator's son with a shaky smile and too many rings. You can prepare for those. You can plan escape routes. You can drop your voice an octave and say, "Don't touch me like that." But others, they come quietly, inside the body, under the skin, behind the ribs. This is the part no one writes about in those stone-etched reviews or poetic verses. The part they don't carve into marble. The part that never makes it into the records unless it ends in a burial or a baby. Let's talk about health, or rather the absence of it. You live in a world without antibiotics, without sterile instruments, without the idea that germs even exist. In Rome, illness is blamed on imbalance, bad air, bad blood, bad behavior. And guess what? You're already accused of the last one. You wake one morning to itching, to burning. You try not to think about it. You rinse with vinegar. You pray to Venus. You hope it goes away. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Venereal disease is rampant. Nobody talks about it. Everybody has it. Your friend Claudia walks bow-legged one week. She whispers, "It hurts when I breathe." You give her some of your natron and a sip of wine. That's all you have. That and hope. Roman medical texts talk about these illnesses with the casual tone of a man writing about someone else's pain. They list symptoms in terrifying detail: discharge, lesions, swelling of the groin, whatever that means. They recommend treatments like herbal compresses, vinegar douches, and charms. One suggests you tie a wolf's tooth around your thigh. You try it, it doesn't work. Historians still debate whether Roman physicians understood the difference between different infections. They probably didn't. The idea that a disease has a name, a cause, a treatment that belongs to a future you'll never meet. You treat symptoms. You endure. Then there's pregnancy. You live in a body that bleeds, that aches, that might betray you at any time with a life you never asked for. There's no pill. No IUD. Just folk remedies and prayers. You've tried most of them. A plant called silphium, once so popular it was harvested to extinction. Wool soaked in vinegar or honey stuffed inside and hoped upon. Crocodile dung. You don't ask where it comes from. Ribbons tied around the thigh. Desperate whispers over steaming herbs. Sometimes they work. Sometimes they don't. And when they don't, when your belly swells and not from lentils, you have decisions to make. Some women carry to term. They raise the child behind the curtain in the corner of a brothel room. The baby learns to cry softly, learns to be invisible. Others don't. They take the baby to a foundling home, a church or a corner, or a family they'll never meet. Or worse, they leave the child by the river. Not out of cruelty, but because Rome leaves you no soft options. You've seen it. A baby wrapped in linen left near the market gate. A woman watching from the shadows, hands clasped, eyes dry. Infanticide isn't legal. But turning a blind eye, that's practically a civic duty. You wonder sometimes what happens to them, those children. Do they grow up to build walls, to write poems, to march in legions? Do they curse the woman who bore them, or do they thank her for letting them live? You'll never know. Most of the time you don't ask. The rest of the time you treat the body like a tool, clean it, paint it, sell it, ignore its warnings, until it stops working. You know a girl who went deaf in one ear after an especially rough client. Another who lost her eye to a jealous lover. Another whose hand never healed right after a fall on slick tavern tiles. None of them stopped working. They couldn't. There's no sick leave in this job. No healers waiting in wings. No compensation for damaged goods. Your best remedies are wine sleep and whatever herbs you can afford. Wine numbs. Sleep is a gamble. Herbs are expensive. You chew willow bark for pain. You drink chamomile to stop shaking. You press cold cloth to your temples and hope your fever breaks. And when none of it works, you go to the temple of Aesculapius, god of healing. Not for medicine, for miracles. You lie on the cold stone floor beside other sick women and beg the gods to notice. Maybe you bring an offering, a carved votive of your uterus if you're feeling literal. Maybe a coin. Maybe a tear. You sleep there hoping for a dream that tells you what to do. You once dreamed of fire. You woke up feverish but breathing. That was enough. Sometimes the gods are silent. Sometimes they answer with the whisper of a breeze or a cat brushing against your ankle. You take what you can get. Then there's the mental toll. No one talks about it, but it's everywhere. The girl who stares too long at nothing. The one who flinches when someone touches her wrist. The one who laughs too hard at bad jokes. You've seen them all, been them all. There are nights when you lie awake staring at the ceiling crack that looks like a fish and wonder if you're still real. If the girl in the bronze mirror is still you. You try to keep small joys, a favorite shawl, a client who says thank you, a kitten that visits your window twice a week. These things become your anchor. You whisper secrets to the walls. You write fake love letters to yourself. You imagine lives where no one knocks at your curtain. You survive, not because you're strong, but because you don't have another option. And that more than anything is the miracle they never carved into stone. Not the surviving, but the doing it over and over and over. There's a certain look they give you when they start thinking it's love. It doesn't happen often. Most men come and go without eye contact, let alone feelings. But some linger. They sit a little longer on the edge of the mattress. They touch your cheek like it means something. They ask your name like they're planning to write it down and remember it forever. You lie, of course. You always lie. Because nothing good ever comes from telling the truth in your profession. Not your real name, not your real age, and certainly not your real feelings. But that's the trick with love in a Roman brothel. It never shows up when you expect it, and it never looks like the kind of love they write about in plays. There are no roses, no sunsets, no noble declarations in the middle of the forum. Just a man who keeps returning, a girl who listens too closely, a shared joke that makes you forget for one terrifying moment that this is all supposed to be pretend. At first you convince yourself it's nothing, just a kind client, a generous one, a regular who doesn't spit when he talks or smell like pickled cabbage. But then he brings a gift, a comb, a necklace, a poem scratched into a scrap of bark that he claims he wrote himself. You don't ask if it's stolen. You just smile and tuck it into your cloak like it matters. Because some part of you, some soft, unguarded, dangerously human part, wants it to matter. You know what the other girls will say? You've said it yourself before. They always say they're different. They always leave. But this one, he lingers. He listens. He calls you by your fake name like it's sacred. He says, I know you're not like the others. You hear that a lot. It never means what they think it means. Still, you find yourself hoping he comes back. You catch yourself smoothing your hair before he arrives, laughing a little louder at his jokes. And that's when you know it's happening again. That slow slide into danger. Not physical, no. Emotional. Because in this job, emotions are the luxury you can't afford. You've seen what happens. You saw Doria fall for a soldier. Gave him her savings to help him get back to his unit. He disappeared within a week. Left her with a broken sandal and a swollen belly. She worked through the pregnancy. Didn't cry once. Just stitched her broken shoe and told anyone who asked that she never expected him to stay. Another girl, Felixia, was freed by her lover. He paid off her, Lena gave her a house near the port, and even promised marriage. But as soon as he found a younger girl with clearer skin, he vanished. Took everything. left Felixia with a garden full of weeds and a wine bill in her name. Historians still debate whether Roman prostitutes were often freed by their clients. The records exist, legal manumissions, even marriages. But for every name carved into stone, there are thousands more that were never written down. You don't need a historian to tell you the odds. You used to dream about it, though, back when you were new, back when your perfume hadn't gone sour and your heart hadn't gone hard. You'd whisper to yourself at night, "He'll fall in love with me. He'll take me away." Now your dreams are quieter. A day off, a bath with clean water, a meal you don't have to share. But the fantasy still slips in sometimes, especially when someone looks at you not with hunger, but with recognition. When they see something beyond the makeup and the performance, or pretend to. And if love doesn't come from a client, it sometimes shows up in the form of the girl next door. Literally. The one who shares a wall with your curtain. The one whose laugh you recognize in the dark. The one who hands you her last coin when you're short or stays awake with you after a bad night. No one talks about it. Not out loud, but it happens. Two women surviving the same grind, breathing the same dust, crying into the same kind of pillow, eventually something soft and real can bloom in the cracks. You once braided her hair before work. She once stole you a mirror. You both pretended it didn't mean anything. But it did. It still does. In a city where men think love is a transaction, the kindest love you've ever known came from another woman who never asked you to earn it. Some women choose to live together after they leave, call themselves companions. The neighbors gossip, but the rent gets paid. The silence is peaceful, and for once, no one knocks on the curtain unless invited. Of course, most love in your world is nothing but performance. It's part of the service. You've said it all before. You're my favorite. You feel different. No one makes me laugh like you do. And they believe it, because they want to. So you say the words. Tilt your head just right. Let your voice go soft in just the right places. And when the curtain closes behind them, you wipe your mouth, straighten your dress, and move on to the next. But sometimes, just sometimes, it doesn't feel like a lie. Sometimes a man says something unexpected, or a girl looks at you like she knows, and for a moment you feel warm, seen, real. Then someone calls your name, not your real name, not even the fake one. Just a label, a service, a placeholder, and just like that, the warmth disappears. Still, you keep a box under your bed, a little wooden one. Inside are scraps of affection, a dried flower, a ribbon, a toothpick carving of a bird, a note that says, "I hope you're eating well." You don't know why you keep them, but you do, because one day, when the paint has worn off and the smiles don't come as easily, you'll open that box. You'll hold those memories like they're real, like they're yours, like maybe just, maybe they meant something. And you'll tell yourself, "I wasn't just a body, I was loved, even if only a little." And for tonight, that will be enough, because someone's knocking again. And love. Love doesn't pay the tax man. There's no formal retirement in your profession. No feast day when the Lena throws you a party and says thank you for your years of moaning and makeup. No pension, no wreath, no fanfare. Just a slow fade, one aching joint at a time. Because in the Roman world of prostitution, the currency isn't just coin, it's youth. Your body is your business. Your skin, your teeth. Your ability to flirt without looking exhausted. And when those start to fade, when your voice grows hoarse, your back starts to ache. Your eyes take longer to look bright, you begin to notice the shift. Fewer knocks on the curtain. More silence in the hall. You stand in the same spot outside the bathhouse and realize men are walking past you now. It's not personal, it's physics, gravity, economics. The younger girls arrive fresh from the countryside or the slave markets. Soft voices, wide eyes, knees that don't creak when they kneel. They don't know how to negotiate yet. don't know to ask for coin up front, don't know to check the purse before pulling back the curtain. But they're pretty and new, and Rome has always been obsessed with new. So where does that leave you? If you're lucky, you've been saving. Carefully. Quietly. Coins slipped behind bricks inside broken sandals under floor mats no one checks. You've kept track. You've resisted temptation. You didn't give it away to that client who promised he'd take you to Ostia. If you've done all that, and if the gods are feeling generous, you might buy your freedom. If you were enslaved, that's a legal process with paperwork, witnesses, and often a staggering final price. You might light a candle to Libertas, the goddess of liberty. You might even afford a real one, not one of those beeswax pebbles that melt in 10 minutes. If you were free already, you might rent a stall at the market. Sell perfumes, maybe olive oil, maybe combs. Something small, manageable. Something that smells better than sweat and regret. Some girls open their own bathhouses or even brothels. They become Lenas. They shout the same commands they used to hate. But now the shouting comes with power. They set the rates, choose the clients, say who gets to rest and who doesn't. You've met those women, tough, sharp, and dressed in dark linens with stiff hair buns and tight coin purses. They never smile, but they never beg either. Being a madam means you no longer need charm. You need teeth. You run schedules. You keep books. You remember debts. And you watch the new girls come in with hope on their faces and wine on their breath. You want to warn them, but you don't. No one ever warned you. Some women choose a softer exit. They become fortune tellers, street-side philosophers with too much experience and not enough tolerance for small talk. You know one who reads omens in ashes. She says she sees love, death, and taxes in every burn mark. She charges by the question, not the answer. She once read your future and said, "Your curtain won't always be open." You paid her double for that. Others become herbalists, wise women with jars of herbs, pastes, and potions. They treat everything from headaches to heartbreaks. Their hands still smell like smoke, but it's the good kind, the healing kind. Some simply keep working. They learn to adjust their pitch, their look, their story. Instead of young and wild, it becomes experienced and discreet. They tell clients, "You won't have to explain yourself to me." And the ones with too many regrets or too much age behind their eyes, they pay well for that. One woman you know worked until she was 50. Her trick, she learned astrology. She could tell a man his future and make him feel lucky in the same breath. There are still clients. Men who like older women. Men who want to be seen by someone who's not easily fooled. Men who are tired of performance and just want to be held. They don't come often, but they exist. For the rest, the ones who didn't save or got sick or were discarded by a madam who wanted a younger lineup, there are fewer choices. They beg. They sweep temple floors. They press herbs in exchange for food. They disappear. Rome does not reward endurance. It pretends not to see it. But among the girls, you remember the woman who taught you how to knot your sash just right. The one who said, "Don't ever cry in front of a client. Cry after." The one who lit a candle for every girl who didn't come back. You carry their names, not the ones they used for clients. The real ones. The whispered ones. And someday, someone might carry yours. Because even if the city forgets you, you were here. You worked. You survived. You taught. You endured. They may never build statues of you, but your fingerprints are on every wall. Your perfume still lingers in the stones. Your stories live in the silence between knocks. You age. You ache. You step back from the curtain. And one day, you don't open it again. You sit. You breathe. You listen to the city murmur. And you say softly to no one, "I made it." So here we are at the quiet end of a long, uneven path. A day in the life of a Roman prostitute was never just a day. It was 1,000 calculations, 1,000 performances, 1,000 tiny survivals stacked on top of each other. Behind every flick of rouge, every staged smile, every whispered price was a woman balancing on the edge of legality, morality, and exhaustion. Some found a way out, some didn't, some laughed, some left. Most were forgotten. But in the cracks of the empire, in the spaces between grand monuments and cleanly written laws, their stories flicker on, etched into graffiti, whispered in poems, scrawled into tax records and receipts. Not glamorous, not tragic, just real. And as the night settles in soft and forgiving, maybe now you see them too. Not as myths, not as metaphors, but as people. As survivors. Now rest easy. The curtain is drawn. The torchlight dims. The room is quiet. The city hums far away. You are safe. You are still. End of script. Good night.